The Objective News Network, more on the remarkable story of Nicholas Purpura. The Objective News Network has been sharing with you the story of Nicholas Purpura, one of the victims of the biggest mortgage fraud scheme in the whole history of the United States. Nick is an 81-year-old disabled veteran who lives in a house that has been specially equipped with medical equipment to help keep him alive. In Nick's case, before Washington Mutual Bank, or WAMU, collapsed in the biggest bank failure in American history, they gave him an adjustable rate mortgage note on his home. The only problem was that the note was usurious and illegal in New Jersey at the time it was signed. Again, it was illegal in New Jersey at the time it was signed. But Nick didn't know that. After WAMU collapsed, Nick was contacted by J.P. Morgan Chase with the news that they were the new servicer of his loan. But in reality, J.P. Morgan Chase Bank intentionally lied to Nick. You see, Nick's house had already been placed in a special liquidation trust fund by the state of Delaware, being deemed unenforceable. This means that no one owned Nick's mortgage note because it was a legal nullity. Then J.P. Morgan Chase extorted under fraudulent pretenses and under threat of foreclosure on his home by demanding that Nick renegotiate the terms and conditions of what Nick was led to believe was his original mortgage note, but this time at a rate he could no longer afford because he was living off his monthly Social Security check. Clearly, under federal and state of New Jersey laws, J.P. Morgan Chase Bank engaged in fraud by pretending to have acquired Nick's prior mortgage note from WAMU. Nick struggled to make his new mortgage payments to J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, but fell behind in his payments, just as it appears was the goal of J.P. Morgan Chase Bank in the first place. But he did scrimp and save enough money from his monthly Social Security check, as small as it was, to make nearly $200,000 in totally bogus mortgage payments on the fraudulent mortgage note being serviced by J.P. Morgan Chase Bank. Clearly a fraud. Then J.P. Morgan Chase Bank began to maliciously prosecute a foreclosure proceeding against Mr. Purpura to take his home as part of a mortgage fraud scheme that would make money, lots of money, for J.P. Morgan Chase as it sold the Purpura home and homes just like them across the country. Another fraud, because 228 years of mortgage law and legal precedent in the good old US of A requires as an absolute prerequisite. I'm going to repeat that term because it's important. An absolute prerequisite. You must have a properly certified and endorsed original archival record of any mortgage note before you can even initiate a foreclosure on someone's home. Another factor ignored by the judges presiding over the Purpura foreclosure matter. Since Nick could not afford a lawyer, he tried to defend himself. He found himself on his own in a New Jersey and federal court system, as the evidence demonstrates, was as corrupt as J.P. Morgan Chase Bank in the first place. Nick was shifted over and over again among 5 different courts, with his motions being denied or simply not heard, or overlooked as one judge after the other fraudulently claimed they were unable to interfere with the previous judge's rulings, even in the face of knowing that fraud vitiates all that it touches. That means that any and all previous decisions, court rulings, and orders were legally null and void. Federal judge Leda Donwetra denied a motion to introduce a RICO cause of action that would have exposed the entire mortgage fraud scheme. Federal Judge Renee Bum denied responsibility for an Amicus Curiae brief sent to her since all of the lower courts were already corrupted. That's the one important legal rule about fraud. If the fraud is actually perpetrated on the machinery of the court itself, as the court's own record in the Purpura case reveals. The rule is that fraud upon the court vitiates all that it touches, making any previous decisions, rulings, and orders made by any judge in the matter completely null and void. You see, what happened in Nick's case was that the multiple judges who presided over his different proceedings in different courts intentionally ignored the fundamental tenet that the entire foreclosure proceeding involving the Purpura residence was based on fraud by J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, and the judges themselves were aware of the fraud, but intentionally ignored it and denied motions to expose it, all on the fraudulent pretense that they legally could not interfere with other judges' rulings as part of a complete and total legal charade by the judges themselves. So what we end up with is a mortgage fraud scheme being orchestrated by the judges, J.P. Morgan Chase, and their legal counsel as a racketeering, influence, corrupt organization where the judicial members of the illicit RICO enterprise are making decisions under color of law, that means as judges, knowing full well that they are themselves violating the same laws that they have already sworn to uphold. On Monday, August 18, 2023, Nick Purpura was ordered to attend a hearing before a judge of the Superior Court of New Jersey, located in Monmouth, New Jersey. The judge's name is David A. Nitti. Now, Nick had requested that his advocate be able to appear with him in court, but Judge Nitti forbade it. So Nick did the best he could on his own. ONN requested a transcript of the hearing, which you can see here. What transcribed is a truly remarkable, and we wanted all of you to see it as absolute proof of the corrupt state of the courts in New Jersey. In the transcript, we see that Mr. Purpura repeated the three obvious issues of fact governing the entire legal case from the very beginning. First, Nick told Judge Nitti point blank that the original adjustable rate mortgage note had been deemed as a legal nullity. Second, that Mr. Jamie Dimon himself, the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, swore in testimony before the Securities and Exchange Commission of the United States, SEC, that J.P. Morgan Chase Bank never acquired, quote, a single adjustable rate mortgage note from WAMU. This, of course, is in direct conflict with the story J.P. Morgan Chase counsel is now telling the judges of the court. And what's even worse, they know that they are committing perjury before the tribunal. And by the way, so do the judges. Third, that a bona fide criminal handwriting expert determined that documents presented to the courts by J.P. Morgan Chase counsel as original proof of ownership were forged and tampered with in violation of the law. Not surprisingly, legal counsel for J.P. Morgan Chase at the hearing did not address any of these issues of fact, and Judge Nitti simply let him get away with it. Judge Nitti simultaneously denied any motion for summary judgment by telling Nick Purpura on the court record that because his case was already dismissed, he was precluded from filing any motion for summary judgment before the court, despite the fundamental legal tenet that fraud and fraud upon the courts themselves had already vitiated everything it touched in the Purpura case, and what Nick was reporting to the court involved criminal activities. When confronted with clear legal tenet that fraud vitiates all that it touches, Judge Nitti told Mr. Purpura that, quote, and I want to quote, "You haven't proven any fraud, and there is no fraud in this record I can see based on prior court opinions. You are assuming. You want to say there is fraud." The fact of the matter, however, is that the evidence of fraud by J.P. Morgan Chase and their counsel in the Purpura matter is clear and compelling. Reading through the rest of the transcript, even a layman like me can immediately see Judge Nitti's attempt to make meaningless legal excuse after legal excuse, to intentionally deny that fraud had already vitiated the actions of J.P. Morgan Chase, their legal counsel, and all prior decisions, rulings, and orders already made by any other court or judge as they relate to the Purpura matter. Finally, I want to share with you a letter that I wrote to New Jersey Attorney General Platkin in a last-ditch effort to stop the fraud and prevent the sheriff's sale of Nick Purpura's home. The letter begs Attorney General Platkin to intervene in accordance with his statutory authority, to provide Mr. Purpura with injunctive relief to stay the foreclosure of his home and the sheriff's sale of his residence until allegations against judges, J.P. Morgan Chase, and their counsels can be fully investigated. Please help us here at ONN by calling Attorney General Platkin's office at 973-648-2500. You can also send him a short fax at 973-648-3879. You can also file a consumer protection complaint at this URL. If all of us would just take a minute to file a complaint with anyone we know in New Jersey government, maybe we can save Nick Purpura's home. Please help us. It is what it is for Friday, August 25th, 2023. Thank you for watching. Please tell your friends, colleagues, and followers about us. Next time, we are going to share more on this incredible story, showing you how federal judge Renee Baum and other judges are involved in the largest RICO mortgage fraud scheme that has ever been perpetrated in the United States of America. We'll see you the next time. This is John Hnatio reporting for the Objective News Network. Thank you.